Changing your life starts with changing who you are. Now, lots of gurus on the internet talk about identity shifting, but no one offers a real method. They only offer affirmations, journaling, and fake it till you make it. And none of those actually work for shifting your identity. Today, I'm going to give you another piece of the self-concept model, which was created by my mentor, Steve Andreas. More than a decade ago, this model completely changed my life. It works, and it works really fast. It's a step-by-step method that you can use to shift your identity with predictable results, meaning you know what you want to shift into, and you follow this approach step by step, and it works. It's a kind of a paint by numbers thing. It is that simple. It is something you have to work at and practice and understand. So today, first, what I'll do is I'll give you some context for the model, which I've covered in other live streams, some previous live streams that I've done. And then I'm going to quickly recap that so that what I teach you today will make sense to you, even if this is the very first time you've even heard of this model. Now, if you want to watch those other live streams, you will find those links in the description of this video. Also in the description of this video, you'll find a link to book a call with one of my coaches if you're interested in being trained in the self-concept model. So you'll book that call, you'll talk with a coach, and you'll discuss what you're after, what your goals are, and see if this training is the right fit for you. So let's get into how the self-concept works, the self-concept model. Like I said, I'm going to give you that overview. I'm just going to switch over here. So this is both the model and also how your self-concept works. If you've seen my other live streams, you've seen me go through this before, but it doesn't help. I mean, it doesn't hurt to recap it. So let's see here. What happens is you have something called experiences. By the moment you're born, you're taking in all of this information, right? All this information is hitting your five senses, and you need a way to organize that information, to make meaning of that information. And we call that experience. You mark in at a certain point, you mark out at a certain point, you say this thing was an experience that I had and it was good or it was bad. Now, as we're having experiences, and what experiences are is just basically an imposition on this continuous consciousness that you've been living. You have not really experienced a beginning and an end because you don't remember being born. It wasn't an actual experience. You were too young. Your mind was not there yet to be able to create or organize an experience. So yes, it happened, but you didn't experience it like you have experiences now. And then as you started to grow and your mind matured and you started to be able to organize these experiences better, and these are what turn into your beliefs. When those experiences that have something to do with you or you're connected to those experiences, this is what starts to develop your sense of self. So you have experiences, and as you select and collect these experiences and you are making experiences about self, someone is calling you, in my case, Damon, they're calling me this Damon word. Okay, I guess that means that's me. And then when my name gets connected to certain experiences or the experiences that I'm having seem to fit with, there's a strong connection between me and that experience, we start to cultivate beliefs about who we are. And these beliefs I'm going to refer to as qualities. In this case, qualities would be defined as generalizations about aspects of who you are. You could, in the most general terms, you could say you're a good person or you're a bad person. So that doesn't tell us a lot, right? It's very, very general. But if I said, you're a kind person, or you're a happy person, a joyful person, a determined person, a passionate person, these are all qualities. Now, we believe these things about ourselves or we don't. We might believe the opposite, like I'm unintelligent, or I'm not passionate, or I'm weak. We have all these negative beliefs that we have about ourselves. And when I refer to qualities, I'm basically referring to the same thing. They're not positive or negative, even though quality has a positive connotation. In this case, it's just a generalization about an aspect of who you are, positive or negative. Now, that is from selecting and collecting a bunch of experiences. As those experiences start to generalize, they generalize into beliefs. I'm going to use the word generalization, belief, and categorization interchangeably. So qualities are a way of you categorizing yourself, your beliefs about yourself. Now, as we generalize all of these qualities together, you get self-concept, also known as identity. And by the way, these are what we call logical levels in NLP, often confused with Robert Dilts's neurological levels. They are not the same thing. This is logical levels, and you will find logical levels as one of the universal structures in NLP. And the reason why it's a universal structure in NLP, because it's a universal structure in your lived experiences, your subjective experience. We categorize things and we generalize things. As we go up and make broader and broader generalizations, we overlook the differences of the categories, and they're more inclusive. As we go down the logical levels, they become more exclusive, we become more specific. And you'll see this working in this logical levels model that I'm giving you right here. So you have experiences at a higher logical level. They generalize to qualities about who you are. You generalize all those qualities together, and that is your felt sense of self, your self-concept, your identity, who you believe you are. Now, if you like that, if you like who you are, then you get self-esteem. You feel good about yourself. Not only do you feel good about yourself, this is a very healthy, real sense of feeling good about yourself. It's not like affirmations, it's not arrogance. This is you being who you want to be, being who you value. So when your behavior aligns with your values, you get self-esteem. But that could be very temporary because it might not have a belief to hold it in place. So I can say, I don't believe I'm a kind person. I value kindness, but I don't believe I am. My self-esteem is going to be low, right? If I do something kind and I know that I did something kind, I will temporarily feel good about myself. But the moment I'm not actually doing that, it defaults to the belief I'm not a kind person. So then I default to feeling bad about myself. So this goes in a lot of different directions. If I value success, but I feel like a failure, I'm going to feel bad about myself. I'm not going to do very much because I'm not going to be very confident that I can. I believe that I'm always going to fail. So why would I even try? If I transform that belief from being a failure to being a success, and I have a healthy definition of what success means, and I believe that, then I'm not afraid to try. I'm not afraid to fail. I'm going to get out there because I know it's just a matter of time before I succeed. I know that I need to fail a number of times before I actually am going to have that success. Failure is a part of success, so I'm not afraid of it. I'm very confident. I believe I'm a successful person, so I feel good about myself and I feel confident about that. So where we do the work at in the self-concept model is here. So what you're getting a lot of from other so-called gurus about identity shifting is they're trying to work at the level of self-esteem. That's like your affirmations. I'm just going to go directly to it. I'm just going to try to make myself feel good about myself even though I don't believe it. This creates a lot of internal friction and internal conflicts and a lot of problems. You cannot go to the tip of the iceberg and try to change the direction of the iceberg by pushing on the tip. That's what people are trying to do here when they try to go directly at self-esteem. It does not work because you've got all of this happening over here. And if you don't address that, you cannot force yourself to feel good about yourself. You can try to delude yourself into doing that, but you're going to create more problems than you solve. Now, a lot of people are trying to go here. They just go, I'm just going to change myself. I'm just going to journal and I'm going to get clear about who I want to be. And then I'm just going to go out there and be that person. You've tried this, I'm sure, before. And within a week or two, you're just kind of default right back to who you didn't want to be anymore or whatever, however you decided that. And the reason for that is that because it's all held in place by your beliefs about who you are. And you can try to act against those, but when that happens, you get what we call cognitive dissonance. And this doesn't feel good. You are acting out of alignment with who you believe you are. And even when you act out of alignment with who you believe you are, and that belief is negative, it still feels like a disconnection. And it feels confusing and chaotic. And this is why we will align with our negative beliefs even if they're not serving us. Because to not do that feels so chaotic and confusing, and the sense of not knowing who you are is so scary that we would rather just default to the familiar beliefs of who we are, even if they're negative and very limiting. All right, so that's how the model works. Here's where we do the work. And in order to do this work, and I'll swing back around and mention this, is we identify a quality that you feel very certain about yourself and that you like about yourself already. So you'll see this theme throughout NLP, and that's modeling. And that is to take something that's already working. And this is another presupposition of NLP, that most of you is already working just fine. Okay, you're not broken, and sure, you have some problems you want to fix, great, but most of you is working just fine. Let's look at what is working, let's model that, and then map that model over, that structure, to the parts in your life and who you are that you're not happy with and that's not working. And so we give it a better model, a better organization to generate that. So what we do in the self-concept model is we find, well, what's a quality that you already feel certain about, that you already like about yourself? And then we go into modeling the structure of that. And once we have that structure, then we know how you create structurally a belief about yourself that you like and that you feel certain about. It's that structure that makes you feel certain about it. It's organizing all of the information of your memories, your internal representations into that structure that makes it feel certain, so that that's the information you're unconsciously bouncing off of 24/7. So how do we do that modeling? Well, there is what I covered on these other live streams. Like I said, you'll see there's something called process elements. And that's where we elicit the structure. Now, how does that show up? I'm going to just briefly go over this. Like I said, watch the other live stream if you want to see an in-depth modeling of this. So I'll take a quality that I like about myself and that I feel very certain about, and that's the quality of being persistent. I've known that about myself my entire life. I don't doubt it. It's the strongest quality that I have. Now, that doesn't mean it's perfect. That doesn't mean that sometimes, I know I can acknowledge that I quit things. That's not, we're not looking for purity. Okay, nothing's going to be pure. But I know this quality about myself. So I start asking questions like, well, how do I know this about myself? And this is where we begin the modeling. Well, I have examples in my life of being very persistent. Okay, as I'm thinking about it, how many of these examples come up? A bunch start to come up. I can think throughout my entire life, I have an unlimited supply of examples that keep popping up. Now, sometimes for people, they might know that they have a lot of examples, but they only like 10 pop up or 5 pop up, and that's fine. That's where we're getting started, right? So I've been doing this work long enough that I know like these examples start popping up a lot, and you can even see me gesturing here. Because so the first piece is how many examples show up. How many examples does it take for you to feel certain about something, a belief about who you are? And then where are they popping up in our personal space? And this is where we really get into the fun stuff of NLP. Well, they're movies that pop up right here on my left, and they're about the size of my hand, okay? And we all do this. Even if you're very auditory, the sounds or the voices there are showing up. They have a location, okay? So we find the location. And so we have examples, we have location, and then how do I access those examples? Do I access them all at once, or do I access them one at a time? And for me, it's one at a time. I go through them one at a time like this. I see movies of times in my life when I was very persistent. Now, I can get into more of the details, but again, I've already covered this. It's in a different live stream. This is the beginning of modeling that quality about you that feels very certain and that you like about yourself. And when you're done with the process elements, you have a full template of the structure for what creates a belief about yourself that feels very certain. And this is awesome. This is where NLP becomes so much more powerful than any of the other stuff out there, because we have that structure, and all we need to do is map the other information, your other experiences into this structure, and then it will feel very certain and solid. The other piece to this is what we call aspects of time. And the reason why this one's really important is because time is one of the dimensions in which we process reality. So time and space. And your self-concept, your sense of self, your identity, is the only generalization you have or that you make that transcends time and space. So when you make a change in your identity, it generalizes wildly and widely and throughout your entire life, okay? So aspects of time, we want to go through and understand time, because your sense of self has continuity to it. That's what makes it so strong. That's what makes it so powerful. And that's what I mean by it transcends time and space. It doesn't matter where you go, you still feel like you. It doesn't matter where in your life you are. You will refer to yourself in the past as I, not he or she. And into the future, as you project yourself into the future, your future plans, you say I will. You're still projecting yourself. You're not saying he will or she will. So that identity generalization transcends that time and space. So time is very important. It's really important to understand how you create continuity through time, and especially about who you are and the beliefs you have about yourself. And then we get to aspects of content. And that's what we're going to cover today. Now, aspects of content. So NLP is all about structure and process, not about content. So you might be wondering, well, why am I doing aspects of content? So we are still applying structure to content. So we're still coming at this from a content structure perspective. It's just that the first two, the process elements and the aspects of time, we don't really get in there and play around with the content. When you work through these, you'll see what I mean. When we get to the aspects of content, that's when we actually start to dig in and start to play with the content, which not only is very powerful, but it's actually a lot of fun. All right, so I already mentioned modeling the quality. And so modeling a certain solid quality of who you are already, and then using that model to map in information from other qualities that you want to be, but do not feel like you are, do not believe you are. That is the essence of the self-concept model. And you're also, like I said, you're going to see this as a theme throughout any NLP, that NLP is really essentially about modeling. It's about modeling what works in yourself, or modeling what works well in someone else who's very successful at something that you want to be successful at, extracting that model, pure structure, no content, and then mapping in your own content, and then seeing if that structure does it for you. Does that structure solve the problem? Does it make everything clearer for you to go after what you want and accomplish it and create it? And so this is the basis of NLP, using that in an NLP model, in this case, the self-concept model. All right, and I just want to mention too, if you want to learn this, it's fascinating to learn. It's powerful. It will change your life. I can't say enough good things about it. Again, in the description of this video, you will see a link. You can book a call with a coach to meet with them to see if this is a training that you would like to do. Now, by the time we get to the, let's see, get a fresh page here. By the time we get to the aspects of content, the assumption is you have already found a quality that you feel very certain about and that you like about yourself, and you've already elicited the process elements of it. You've already elicited the aspects of time, and you've done the tune-ups that go with that, because there's a lot of ways in which you can organize your self-concept that you're probably not aware of, that we teach, and how to really optimize it. And then you get to the aspects of content. So you've typically been working with the same quality through this whole time to extract that model, and then we get to the aspects of content. Now, once you have this model fully fleshed out, then you go into, well, who do I want to be? What's a quality that I value very highly that I don't believe about myself, or that I feel ambiguous about? And it's kind of back and forth, because if there's a quality that you value, but you believe you are not, or you believe you are sometimes and sometimes you're not, your self-esteem is going to take a hit, your confidence is going to take a hit, and your overall general fulfillment and the fulfillment of your potential is going to be limited. So that's why this is so important. Now, once you have the model, how you've mapped it out, and then you know the quality you want to transform, then you start going through these process elements, aspects of time, and aspects of content, mapping in the new information. So we're going to go ahead and play around with this using the aspects of content. So let's get started with that. And the first one, if you're NLP trained, you may have come across this. In fact, you should have if you're NLP trained. It's called perceptual positions. Now, perceptual positions is really important to have the necessary perceptual positions within your quality. Now, most of the time, you're going to want all three, and I'm about to show them to you. Most of the time, you want all three, but there are rare occasions for certain qualities you might not. So what do I mean here? So let's get over to here so I can don't mess with the other thing. So perceptual positions. So you'll take an example in your quality that you're working with. So let's say I'm working with my quality of persistence. I want to understand it better. So I have all these examples that pop up here, and I can just randomly grab any example in my life of a time where I was really persistent that, is evidence that supports me in this belief of being a persistent person. And I can grab one that involves one or more other people. This doesn't really work so well if you're alone. If in the example, in the memory, you were just by yourself, which, you can be persistent just on your own. What this one does is it requires that there's at least one other person and possibly more. So let's say I worked on something with someone else and I was very persistent in doing that. So I'm going to, first of all, I'm disassociated, meaning I see myself in my memories first. So I see a movie of myself in this example of doing whatever it was that I call persistent. And I see that and I go, yep, that's me being persistent. Okay. Now we get into aspects of content and we start with perceptual positions. We go much deeper into the content here. So what I'll do is I'll associate into it, and we call this first position. I'm going to associate into this memory, meaning I'm going to drop into it as if I'm there again, reliving this whole thing. This is what we call associated. Now, some people are already there. Some people are naturally associated into all of their examples already. That's nothing wrong with that. It's just some people do things differently. For me, I'm usually disassociated, and then if I choose, I can associate. And if you're doing this exercise, you might go, well, I'm already associated. That's great. You want to be fully associated. Sometimes people are associated and they just see a point of view perspective of what's happening. Fully associated is you're back in the memory. And if I look to the left or to the right, I would see whatever I would see if I was actually reliving this completely. And then of course, I see this other person. So we'll say, here's me, and here's the other person. And we will call this second position. So I drop into the memory, I'm fully associated, that puts me in what we call first position. It's like first person perspective. It's like in a story, this would be, the story is told from the person who's living it, not an outside narrator and not another player in the story. So I associate in, I kind of soak up all of this information that's going on, and then I can do something else. I go second position, and that means I float up out of my body and I float into the other person's body and I become that person. I'm not me in the memory just going over here and looking back at myself. I become that person. I make all the assumptions that I have about this person, what they think, what they feel, their perspective. I become them and let go of myself, can become them and look back at myself. This is what creates empathy and sympathy. We do this naturally. If you say, oh, this sounds weird, we do it all the time. And especially when we're very connected with someone, we naturally go second position with them. Okay, now there are good sides and downsides to all of these positions. I don't have time to go through all of that. I just want to show you the exercise. Now I can sit in this second position and look back at myself from their perspective, and this is going to give me new information about me being this quality, because now I'm seeing it from someone else's perspective. Then once I'm done there, I can move to third position. And this is, if you're NLP trained, this is not a meta position. Okay, meta position implies you're just being yourself, observing yourself. Like if I was over here, being me, observing me, this would be a meta position. And perceptual positions, a third position is a neutral position. I'm not me, I'm not the other person, and I'm also equal distance apart. Everyone's equal distance apart. Because if you do this and you're not equal distance apart, you will tend to feel biased towards the person you're closest to. So you want to make sure that you're maintaining equal distance when you're doing this exercise, and you're the same height as everyone. Because if you're lower, you're going to feel inferior. If you're higher, you're going to feel superior. We don't want that. So I get into a third position. I'm completely neutral. I can't read the thoughts or the feelings of these other two people. And I just observe and I listen. and I gather up this information, and then I go back to first position. I let the information I gathered from second position and third position integrate into first position. And then I come back to here and then I go, okay, what happened? Now, most of the time this is going to strengthen your quality. If it doesn't, what you'll understand is that you weren't fully perceiving yourself accurately, which is also healthy, which is also good. It's good information to know so that you can make the corrections. So what's really important here, and this is a very fun exercise and it has so many applications, not just for this model. The main point is you want to make sure that these positions are available in all of your examples and all of your qualities. Because without them, if you're too much in first position, you're very limited. And this also can be where arrogance comes in and self-importance comes in. When we add in the second position, now you have a sense of someone else's perspective. You also have more empathy. When you add the third position in, you're looking at yourself objectively and you're able to assess that better. And then you take all that information back to the first position, and it just really enriches that sense of being this quality. So there's a lot more that I could say on this, but I want to make sure that we cover the other aspects. So I'm not going to go too much deeper. Well, I'm not going to go any deeper into that. Now the next one is of the aspects of content is specific detail. By the way, if you're asking questions, hold your questions and I'll get to them when I'm done. Let's see, specific detail versus metaphors. Could also say symbols, analogies. So what I find in most people's databases, whenever I elicit them and I'm helping them, is that most people, all of their examples are like real life specific detail. And you might be thinking, well, what else would it be? Well, some people use metaphors, and metaphors are very powerful. Metaphors are very powerful because they don't give you a lot of specific detail, but they make you feel something strongly. And what's also great about that is because it doesn't give a lot of specific detail, you can kind of just drop that symbol into anything. An example of this was one time I was at a friend's house, and I was sitting on her back patio, and she had a Buddha statue in her window. And I'm not a Buddhist. I do like Buddhism and Zen philosophy. So I've read up on it a lot, but I don't consider myself a Buddhist. But sitting there and just looking over at it, I remember feeling so at peace. And it's like, well, it's just a symbol. It's a statue of a Buddha. It wasn't actually like giving me anything, but something about that association, it acted as a powerful metaphor for me for peace. It didn't tell me how to be peaceful. There was no specific details about it, but it symbolized that, so it made me feel it. So what you want to do is you want to find out, well, what is a symbol or a metaphor for your quality? And for me, persistence, when I thought about this, because all of my examples are real life details and sometimes you'll meet people, they're just the opposite. Everything is a symbol, everything is a metaphor in their experience. And these people don't get on in the world very well because they feel things very strongly, but they don't have an understanding of like, well, what do you have to actually do to make that happen? Because they don't have the details. So you don't want to be all one or the other. You want both. You want a balance of specific details in your database. You also want some powerful metaphors that really symbolize that quality for you. And what's even better about that is it makes it much easier to take that quality into any area of your life, into any context, because it doesn't need the specific details. It just brings the meaning for you. So when I was working with this with my quality of persistence, the first thing I thought of was a jackhammer, and I put that inside my database as a symbol. Well, that got pretty annoying. I don't like noise, and I could see this jackhammer, it's just like, okay, it's persistent, but it's persistently annoying. I don't want to be annoying in my persistence. So I started thinking about this more, and I was like, well, what's something that's strong and powerful, but also can adapt and be flexible? And I thought about wind. And like the wind has sort of this like quiet persistence or peaceful persistence. It blows, it goes, and when it hits an object, it just goes around it. And I was like, yeah, I really like that. And I also thought about water. So I put wind and water as metaphors for me being persistent inside my database of examples. And that really heightened the power of it. It felt very strong by doing that. So when you look into your database, if you see that all of your examples are specific detail, then you can ask yourself, well, what would be a metaphor for this quality? If you're working on the quality of being loving or lovable, the obvious thing is a heart. And it's okay to use the most obvious thing. This is your database. It's not anyone else's. So you can use a heart. If it was loyalty or courage that you were working on. A lion might symbolize that for you if it was the quality of being at peace. A dove, these are all like the stuff we already think about. You can still use it, but you also might have something unique to how you think about this or how you symbolize it. So the way to really think about this is if you were to summarize all of your examples of you being this quality into one symbol or metaphor, what would that be? And so it's that bringing it all together and putting into one symbol that makes it so powerful. Now, you definitely don't want your entire database of experiences to be all metaphors or symbols. I've met people like that. And what happens is like I said, they feel things very strongly, but they don't actually know how to make them happen. It's your real life detailed examples in your life that tell you how to be your quality. It's kind of like an instruction book. And what's also great is that if you have a bunch of examples of this, well, you have a diversity of ways to be this quality with different people in different contexts. The metaphors and the symbols really bring the meaning and the feeling, okay? But they don't tell you how to do the details. The detailed examples give you the details, but they don't bring across the meaning so powerfully and so strongly. So having a balance of both makes your quality very, very strong. All right, and the next one is called other people. And this is an interesting one. When you start opening up your database, you start discovering it, you see all the memories and examples of you being this quality in that database. Do you have other people? Now, at first, when I was working with this, I was like, well, no, I don't. And the more I started working with it, I was like, oh, no, actually, I do. When we have role models, there's people we admire, people we look up to, people who possess maybe a quality or multiple qualities we want to be like, we kind of hold them up as a model. And this starts very young in life. It starts with your parents. Before you're a teenager, you think your parents are the most amazing people. You might have an older brother or an older sister, and you model them. You model your parents. You model other people. Maybe if you have a friend who's older than you when you're growing up, and you like them and you admire them, you're probably going to model them as well. So this is how we put other people in our databases, people we're wanting to model. Now, the funniest one that occurred to me, and I didn't know NLP at the time when my kids were born, but you've probably heard this as well. When you have kids, you become your parents, even though you might have thought, like, the last thing I want to do is be my parents or raise my kids like my parents. And I thought the same thing too. And then I have kids, and suddenly I'm repeating the exact phrases they used to say to me, and I'm catching myself thinking, what is going on here? Well, that's because when you don't have maybe as much experience or many examples to tell you how to do something, you're going to reach for the next closest thing. In this case, parenting was new to me. Didn't really have that many examples of being a parent, so I reached for the next closest thing, my parents. So I kind of went second position with them, modeling them, and started acting and even speaking like them. And this happens more than you think. It usually happens very unconsciously, so you might not be consciously aware of it when you're doing it. So you want to make sure you're choosing your models, right? So when you're working with a quality, whether you're modeling one that feels certain or you're transforming one, you want to ask yourself, who is a person who's a real role model for this quality, who really exemplifies this quality? They could be someone you know. They could be someone you've never met. They could be famous. They could be dead. They could be a historical figure or even a fictional character. It doesn't matter. You want to just make sure that the way you represent them in your database, in your mind, is in a way that exemplifies them being that quality and nothing else that you don't want to model. Because when you start modeling people, the tendency is you will pick up things that you don't want to model. So be very specific when you're putting that person in your database of examples that they only exemplify what it is you want to model. And you can put more than one. You can have like 10 people who represent this particular quality in all different ways and brilliant ways so that you want to model that. And so this becomes very powerful. Like I said, it's something you naturally do anyway. So make sure that you're making choices about who you're going to model. So that's how other people work. Then we have major life contexts. Oh, let's see. So this basically means if you take your life and you were to divide it into three to five major life contexts. No more than 5, no fewer than 3. Examples would be career, marriage, social life, hobby, health. These might be 5 areas that to you make sense, that that's how you see your life if you were to divide them into 5 contexts. And it's going to be different for every person. So what I just said is not, you don't need to take that, but you can if you want to. So are you having examples of this quality in each of these contexts? When you have your database and you go through it, do you have examples in each of the major contexts in your life? If not, is there a reason for that? Is there a reason you don't want to be something in a particular context? Sometimes that happens, but for your big sort of major qualities like happiness, joy, being a happy person, being a joyful person, being at peace, most of these you're probably going to want in every single context of your life. So do you have examples of them in every context? Because if you don't, you might start to realize, wait a minute, yeah, in that particular context, I don't feel very happy or I don't feel at peace. So you need to start putting examples of them, examples in those contexts. And then when you do show up to those places, it will become more natural. You will be accessing that as a reference, so you will naturally fall into it and be that quality. Now, there are some exceptions to this. There might be qualities that you don't want to be. So, for example, if I was coaching a UFC fighter, mixed martial arts, and he wanted to be more aggressive, he wanted to be the quality of being more aggressive. Well, he would probably only want that in the ring, right? He wouldn't want that in his marriage. He wouldn't want that as a parent. He wouldn't want that in his social life. So we would restrict that to just when he's in the ring, and mapping in examples into his positive template only when he's in the ring, and excluding all other major contexts of his life. Now we can do the opposite way. So I'll give you an example. When I was first learning NLP and I was going to all these trainings, at the time I was an insurance agent. I wasn't an NLP teacher. And one of the things I noticed is that when I was at an NLP training, and it could be different NLP trainings, any NLP trainings, that was the context, NLP trainings. It could be in a different location. It could have been a different teacher, completely different students. And I was really good. For some reason, I could just learn, absorb the information. And when we practiced, I was really good at all the processes that we did. When I get back to my insurance office, I couldn't seem to make that work. I couldn't seem to bring NLP into my office. And then that's when I realized I didn't have any reference experience of it. So I future paced it. This is another thing we do in NLP. So I imagined what it would be like to have my NLP skills and to use my NLP skills with my insurance clients while I was sitting in my office. And so I rehearsed that many times. I created many examples of that. And guess what happened? When I started going into my insurance office, it came natural. I could now bring my NLP skills and my knowledge and using the processes and techniques in with my clients. And as that happened, then I started creating actual reference experience, real lived reference experiences, examples. And so that built up, and then it just became very natural when I was in that environment to be that quality. So that's what you want to make sure. Are you bringing the quality into all of the contexts in your life where it's important? If not, then you can create them through using future pacing. And what you might also realize is that you already do have examples, you just weren't pulling them in. So you can bring them in. So that's major life context. And then last but not least is what we call content distortions and biases. I got to be really careful when I teach this because this sounds like it has a negative connotation, content distortions and biases. And even when I'm teaching and my students in my coaching program, I've seen them do demonstrations. I evaluate the demonstrations, or I was, now I have other people doing it. And they would think that distortions and biases were bad, so they were trying to help the client get rid of them. It was like, what are you doing? Like, we are always going to have distortions and biases in our internal representations. Like that, it's impossible not to have that. It's like saying a map having a distortion or a bias in a map is a bad thing. And it's like, well, no, that's why you have the map, right? The map is not there to recreate the territory. The map has a bias of getting you from point A to point B. So what does it do? It leaves out all of the unnecessary information, right? So for example, if you were using a map, and I'm going to use the analogy of a paper map. I know that it's completely antiquated and outdated, but if I had a paper map and the map showed me, okay, all of the necessary turns, the landmarks that I will see so that I'll know I'm in the right place, and it has only that, nothing that, and only that. I've got a very good map. It's accurate, and it tells me only what I need to know to get there, and it doesn't add in any other information that might confuse me, that's not going to help me get there. So that's what we're looking to do, and in that sense, the map is biased. The map is biased in getting me where I want to go, and it distorts from the actual territory to get me where I want to go. Well, let's say if we tried to get rid of the bias, we tried to get rid of the distortion. Well, I don't really have a map of where to go because we've eliminated all that. We've completely recreated the territory. So every blade of grass, every grain of dirt, every tree, everything is there. And now I'm just as lost as if, I didn't have a map and I'm looking at the actual territory. I don't know where to go, right? So that's what your representations are. They're maps. So it's okay to delete and distort information. It's okay to have a bias as long as it's serving you. In fact, you're going to have a bias. There's no getting rid of the bias, okay? So all of your representations are going to have distortions and biases, and they're going to have deletions, meaning you delete out information. Is what you currently have serving you and being this quality? That's the question. So what kind of distortions, biases are you talking about, Damon? So when you think about your examples that support you in being this quality, and let's say that there's other people in the example, are you shorter than everyone else? Or are you taller than everyone else? Or are you the same height? What's better for you? Okay, so putting yourself as superior, taller than everyone else, might make you feel better, but people are not going to like you that much, because who likes that? Who likes being treated like they're inferior to you? Like, nobody's going to like that. So this is going to create a problem in relationships. You're not going to connect with people very well. Well, what if you then make yourself shorter than everyone else? And a lot of people do actually do this. Their examples are, in their examples, they're shorter than everyone else. How do you think that makes you feel? How do you think that type of distortion, how do you think that affects you? Not very well. It makes you feel literally small. It makes you feel inferior. You don't want that either. So what's the answer here? Well, to put yourself as the same height. Now you might say, well, that's not the truth. I might actually be shorter or taller than that person. Yes, that might actually be true, but does that serve you? Or does putting yourself at the same height as everyone else, feeling equal and connected with everyone, that probably serves you much better. An example of this is my wife. She's very short. My business partner, he's very tall. I'm in the middle. And so when my wife is now learning this model, and when I asked her, I said, when in your examples, in your memories, where we're all three together, my business partner and me and her, are you taller than everyone else, shorter than everyone else, or the same height as everyone else? And she had to think about it for a while, and she said, I'm the same height as everyone, which is inaccurate structurally, right? It's a distortion, and it made absolute sense to me, because when she's in the presence of everyone, she acts just like she's equal to everyone. She doesn't act inferior. She doesn't act superior, and that's because she sees herself on the level with everyone else. So think about that. How might that affect how you're showing up day to day? If the examples of inequality, any examples that you're referencing, you're smaller than everyone else, or you're taller than everyone else, that's probably going to create problems. So there's a lot more of these. There's like having information there that doesn't matter, and if you can delete out that information, it zeroes your attention onto what it is you did that you liked and that you want to do more of. So you can just get rid of information that is not really serving any purpose. So there's a lot of these distortions and biases. You could really explore this a lot and for a long time, and make it a regular practice just on this. So all of this is about tuning up, adding information, maybe taking information away, tuning up a part of a quality that you want to feel more certain about, or fully transform into being that quality when you started out feeling like you're not that quality. Okay, I just want to make a reminder. Like, there's a lot to this model. It's not really hard. It's there's uh there's some complexity to it. There's some simplicity to it, and it's just a matter of practicing. It's like anything else in NLP. I hate it whenever I hear people say, "Oh yeah, I tried NLP and it doesn't work." And it's like, okay, there's no way that you really, really practiced it and tried it. Okay, and maybe you didn't have the interest. That's a different issue. But it works just like anything else. You can't go try karate for the first time and just, oh, it doesn't work. Well, you had one lesson. Like, you expect to beat a master, or it's like it doesn't work that way. So if you want to become good at this, if you want to learn this and be so good at it that you can transform qualities at will with predictable results, then check out in the description, like I said, there's a link and you can talk to a coach. It's free. The consultation's free, and they just help you sort it out. Like, is this what you want to learn? Is this what you want to do? And like I said, it is extraordinary. Once you start transforming all of those qualities that you value, that you don't believe you are, your life will do 180 degrees. Like, what what feels like the world just happening to you is really based on your beliefs. And when you change those beliefs about yourself, it will feel like the world around you has changed. You will start seeing opportunities. They were always there, you just couldn't see them. So you'll start seeing those opportunities, and you won't be afraid to seize those opportunities. You won't be afraid to take that action to really fulfill your potential. All right, let's see. We got a few comments here. Okay, no questions. All right, so that's it for me. Like I said, this is an extraordinary model. It's a dynamic model. It's the most powerful model, not only the most powerful NLP model, the most powerful model, period, for human potential, for self-improvement, personal development. Like, I've been in personal development since I was a kid. I was very lucky. My parents made that a normal sort of household thing. And I was looking for the pieces to put it all together so I could create the life that I wanted to live. And I started to catch on that creating that life that I want to live really starts with us. It starts and ends with who we are. That's really what it comes down to. So it's not just about like bringing more wealth into your life, bringing more, all that's great. But I actually coach a lot of people who are extraordinarily successful. They have everything in life that you would think would make a person happy, and they're not, because they've never addressed their identity, their self-concept. And so you will be more successful, but you will also be, most importantly, you will be more fulfilled in life. And then everything else just sort of aligns to that. And it's really amazing. I mean, I did this in a period of like a few months to start out with. I just transformed one quality after another, and it was like my life became unrecognizable, almost even to me, because it happened so fast. And then it's just been more and more fulfilling and rewarding ever since. Okay, we have some questions coming in. Let's see. Does watching your videos on school make a difference towards going towards NLP? So if you're in our, I think we have a free membership program in school, and that might be what you're referring to. We also have our NLP Practitioner training, which also has a school community connected to it, so you can have people to practice with. We also have coaches who run. Okay, we don't. So I'm getting my wife's telling we don't have a free school program. So I'm not sure what you're referring to. Inspire Moments at Inspire Moments. We have training in there, and you need to practice the training, or what you're saying. You can't just watch videos and get it. That's never going to happen. If anyone's telling you that all you need to do is just watch videos and you're going to learn NLP, no, you have to practice. NLP is experiential. Let's see, it did not work for me after more than 1 year after trying and failing several times. Lost interest and stopped practicing for lack of results. To keep motivation, but amazing to see your enthusiasm. Okay, well, that kind of makes me wonder why you're here. Not that you're not welcome. You always are. I mean, maybe you just needed some help on what to practice or how to practice. Something that comes up for me a lot is that there is no change, even though I really want it. Well, change comes with trying something new, implementing something new. You need to also, I see this attitude a lot, and it's the one thing that's going to keep you from learning NLP or experiencing the changes, this idea that NLP is supposed to do something to me, or that when I hire a coach, the coach is just supposed to do something to me, and like that's how it works. No, this requires your full engagement. NLP is a structure, it's a model. And so you have to work that model. You have to engage in it. You have to do the practices to align to the model so that you see if it's working or not. And if it's not working, then you keep changing things up. This is not a spectator sport, so to speak. NLP is you have to engage in it. You have to really do it. And when I get clients who have that sort of like, well, just do it to me thing, I'm like, okay, we need to nip that in the bud first, because nothing's going to work if you have that attitude. If it does, it's not going to work as well as it could if you go, okay, I'm fully engaged, I'm going for it. Let's see, you really believe in your stuff, Damon. Perhaps it works for most people, but not all. Well, I mean, you can always say that, like, yeah, some stuff doesn't work for some people. Here's the thing. There is a structure to your subjectivity. There is a structure to the experience of your life, the life experience that you're having. There is a definite structure to that, okay? And that, I would debate anyone on that. You have beliefs, and beliefs have a structure. Your beliefs are what govern your reality, okay? When you understand what those structures are, when you can pull them from your unconscious into your consciousness, now you can have choice about that, okay? That's true for everyone, okay? So what happened in between eliciting those structures for you and then, I guess, attempting to change those structures, and then those changes not happening? Well, I can't know. I'd have to dig into it with you. But I've had many people come to me and say, yeah, it doesn't work. And then I work with them and then it works. But the funny thing is that sometimes people hold to that belief so strongly that even when it works, they come back and say, well, no, I was always like that. I always had. I'm like, what are you talking about? You came to me and you had this limitation or you had this problem. And once it's gone, yeah, there's something called NLP amnesia, where they'll be like, well, no, I always had that in me. And it's like, yeah, I know you always had it in you, but you thought you didn't. And that's what I helped you do. So there is a way, and if you're patient and you're consistent and you work at it, you will be able to do this. And maybe something about NLP doesn't really speak to you in that regard. Let's see, self-concept model of Steve Andreas. Yeah, Steve Andreas created this model. Let's see. You have a good community there. Yeah, we have an amazing community. I wish I could take credit for it, but it's the amazing people who show up, and it's the amazing team I get to work with. The people sort of behind the scenes who in our program who are just, they're amazing. Okay. Oh, cool. You joined the NLP Practitioner. Very cool. See, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate your wisdom and generous teaching. It's my pleasure. I love doing this. I love talking to all of you, and I love sharing this. And what I'm doing right now is what I wish I had whenever I first started on this journey. And unfortunately, there weren't a lot of really good NLP resources out there. There still aren't, unfortunately. There's a lot of stuff calling itself NLP that's not real NLP, and I don't mind. I think that, the more the merrier, right? I just don't like it when people mix it together and you can't tell what's real NLP and what's not. And then I get these criticisms of NLP and they say, well, NLP is this. And I'm like, no, it's not. They'll say, well, NLP is really law of attraction, right? And it's like, no, it is not. It is not. I mean, I would go almost as far to say it's the opposite, but that's a different conversation. Let's see, I'm willing to self-reflect once you realize you have a limiting, how long does it take to change that limiting belief to align into the belief you want? Once you have the structure of it, it happens instantly. You can just change it right then and there. But it's the understanding, the elicitation, and you have all the pieces that you need. Once you have that, and that's the thing, like this structure, when you elicit this template, that's not only the structure of your beliefs about yourself, that's the structure of your beliefs. And you can use that structure, or you might have to, it might be slightly different for a belief that's not about yourself, so you'd want to elicit that structure. But now you have the structure of all your beliefs. That means you can change any of them, right? And that's the amazing thing. Like I had a belief that I couldn't, I could, nothing I could do to make, I mean, it's hard to even remember the belief. It was a money belief that everything that I enjoy cannot make money. And in order to make money, I have to do things that I don't enjoy. I remember when I finally pulled this belief to the surface. So this isn't a direct identity belief. This is what I just thought was true about the world, that this just wasn't there. And so I listed the structure of that, and then I said, well, what do I want to believe? And I said, I want to believe that it's easier to make money doing things that I enjoy. And so I structured the belief to do that. And here we are. I'm doing exactly what I enjoy, what I love doing, what I really enjoy doing, and it's easier to make money doing that than anything else. And so that was a belief that I changed. So you have this, you have the keys to it. Once you have the structure, you have the keys to it, and you can change any belief. And the biggest, I think, thing that where people go wrong, even when they're studying NLP, what they don't understand is that it's about structure. You're very conscious, very aware of the content of your experiences, right? When you think about watching a movie, when you're watching a movie, you don't walk out of the movie saying, "Wow, the editing was great, the lighting was really amazing," or "It was really bad," or yeah, that's the only time you really actually notice if the editing. The only time you notice the editing or the lighting is when it's really bad. But when it's really good, you don't notice those things. You think about the story, you think about the acting and how beautiful the characters are or whatever. That's your focus on content. And so when a movie does well, it's kind of hypnotic in that way. You only focus on the content. You don't see the structure. I come from film school. I went to film school. So I can go watch a movie and I know the formula structure. I can pay attention to the editing and how they're going from one shot to the next. But this doesn't make the movie that enjoyable. To tell you the truth, it's kind of like knowing the secrets of a magic trick, right? But when we're doing work on ourselves, we can pay attention to that structure, and that's what NLP is all about. It is the structure that tells you how to feel about the content. So when you go watch a movie, the way it's edited, the pace of the music tells you what genre you're watching. It's going to be different from a horror movie to a comedy, right? And you typically know this before the characters ever speak a word, right? Because it's baked into the structure, and so you know what to believe, or you know how to go with this, and you know how to feel about it, and you don't even think about it. It's completely unconscious. NLP works the same way. It's about eliciting that structure that creates the feelings you have about who you are, about your experiences, and about your beliefs. So, like I said, it's just a matter of getting quiet and eliciting that structure. Of course, the credit goes to you too, Damon. I'm not sure what you were crediting. Self-concept model. Yeah, I don't take credit for the model. I take credit for being someone who has mastered it. Let's see, how to get rid of self-doubts about having aphantasia, not good enough, etc. Okay, so I can see that this is why you struggled with NLP. You believe you have aphantasia. Every person who I've worked with who claimed that, within minutes, they were visualizing and admitting it to me that they were visualizing. So I don't believe you have aphantasia. And in fact, I've even wanted to go to the doctor who created the term aphantasia and go and I think he's in England, and go and find out if I can work with his clients and see if I can get them visualizing. Maybe there is such a thing, but every time somebody comes to me with that, I go, all right, let's find out. And every time they're visualizing. What do you mean by the structure of a belief? Everything that I just covered today was about structure and how the structure of a belief works. I don't have time to recap it. I got to get going. Some people have that realization they try to do that, which aligns with the new belief, but can't achieve success in that new business. So why some people have the success and some people don't? It depends on how you're defining success. If you're trying to do something that's impossible, maybe you won't succeed, like literally impossible. So anyway, I got to jump off. If you have questions, put them in the comment section and I will respond to them, whether you're live with me right now or you're watching this later. I've got to run. Take care, everyone. I'll see you next time.